Welcome to the November show for Our Schools, Our City. We are very excited today because today is a topic that I know for parents is near and dear, and it certainly is for us in the district, and that is social emotional learning in the Somerville Public Schools. And I think about this time of year, we've gone through sort of our first report card and first parent teachers, and we're already sort of looking and talking with students and parents about what's going well, what we can work on more, what are the supports that we're able to give. And so this is the perfect topic for us to be able to bring to parents today. You know, when we think about social emotional learning, we're really talking about how students and adults, you know, learn to understand their emotions and how they set goals and show empathy and have positive relationships and really have balance in their life, no matter how small or big they are. And so today we have some experts with us, field experts, who do this work every day with your children. And so, Susana, would you like to do some introductions?
Absolutely. There really is a lot of very thoughtful work going on in our schools and across the district to help students develop the skills, the social and emotional skills that they need to be able to access the curriculum successfully. So we're looking forward to hearing from all of our guests today. So joining us today is Steve Marshall, who is the assistant principal at the Kennedy School. Thank you very much for joining us, Steve.
Thank you.
We also have Leslie Lartey. Lartey, who is the counselor educator and a guidance counselor at the West Somerville Neighborhood School. Thanks for joining us, Leslie.
You.
And finally, we have Christianna Morgan, who is a counselor educator at the Capuano Early Education Center. We're happy to have you here.
Thank you. And so you've each been in the Somerville Public Schools now for some time in different roles, and so it might be good to just start and let the audience, you know, share a little bit about yourself and your role in your respective school and your experience with SEL. Christianna, you want to start?
So I've been involved with Somerville Public Schools for 13, 14 years because I'm a parent of two students. At the Capuano, I've been at the counselor educator. This is my fifth full-time year. Came to the schools out of community mental health and clinical work and wanting to be able to have an impact on greater numbers of children. I really liked working clinically, but it was always one-to-one or with one family at a time, and I was seeing with young children in particular, a real need to help them make connections with peers and others. So that's what led me to the schools. Right.
And so you're in your current role, what's the type of work you do in the day, in the course of the day with SEL?
So, as one of our preschool teachers says, it's SEL all day, every day.
That's right.
As you know, the Capuano is early childhood, so our kids are 3 to 6. Developmentally, it's exactly where they are, learning who they are as people, who they are as learners, who they are as friends. And as I often say to parents when they come to me with some questions, they're in a classroom, everybody is learning this. So it's not like one child struggling and everyone else has got it, and we can't figure out why this one child doesn't get it. They're all at different points in learning it. So it's a lot of teaching basics on what is it each individual student needs and how they express that appropriately, how they make friends, how they act as a friend themselves, and what to do when things don't go their way. So sometimes I say there's a lot of confusion, and it's not usually mine, but sometimes it is. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting because over time in education, when we used to talk about social emotional, it was as if it was all within the student. It wasn't a skill set that you learn. It wasn't a skill set that you develop. It was something you came with. And I think as educators, we've become smarter than that. And we realize that based on experiences, students may or may not have some of those skills developed. Or to your point, they develop in a different pace. And so it's on us as educators to make sure we're giving them those experiences in teaching.
I think in addition to that, I'm sorry to interrupt, Mary, in addition to that, we've realized that social emotional learning is a core component of students being able to successfully access education. It's not an aside, it's not an add-on. It's a core piece of learning.
That's right. And so Les?
I'm currently a dean of students at the West Somerville Neighborhood School. Prior to that, I was a counselor educator there at the West. And I'm a former Somerville High School and Somerville Public Schools graduate and alum. So coming back into education for me, from my background, I went to corporate. I was doing some civil or civic works, I should say. And I saw an opportunity because of what you just spoke about in terms of the social emotional learning. It's a challenge. Students were facing and being challenged with requisite skills that they were missing or they weren't being able to develop. And you can see that with all the talent, all the abilities that these students had and these children have, inability to manage just their emotions and how their self-awareness or social awareness impact them in making good decisions was getting in the way of their success. So when you speak about what we're doing in the schools, it's keeping it really simple for the kids and letting them be kids, but letting them know that this is a process that takes time. And yes, we're going to help develop that, and we know that everybody's in a different place, like Christianna said, but we inherently think you want to do well, and we're going to see what we can do to help you do well. Yeah.
Yeah, well said, well said.
Yeah.
Steve?
So I came into like Somerville schools, this is my 22nd year, so I've been at the Kennedy School the entire time, and for 16 years I was the adjustment counselor in our social emotional program that was put at the Kennedy to support students with the social emotional needs. And then the last 5, this is the start of my 6th year as the assistant principal. And I think what's really interesting is when you say social emotional learning, the learning piece is so critical. When you think of adults, even the adults learning what steps need to be taken or what supports need to be put in place. I think the classroom is such a vibrant opportunity, and when that focus is a foundation, because kids can't access academics when they're in a place where they haven't balanced out some of their social emotional needs. And I think putting those two things together is critical and has been really helping us make some serious gains and working through a lot of different things that have been coming up. And it starts so young and it goes all the way up, all the way through education. And we were talking a little bit about that transition from 8th grade to high school and how we still address those social emotional needs, because yes, they look different, but it's still a necessary component.
That's right, absolutely. And so actually, the next question is to maybe just talk a little bit, each of your schools is doing so much in this area, but maybe, 1 or 2 things that you've either been exposed or experienced to as part of your school that you think is really benefiting students. And I know at the Kennedy, the work you've done with mindfulness has been very creative.
Yeah, we've had about 27 of our staff trained in mindfulness through either Tufts or other opportunities to really delve into what mindfulness means, because mindfulness became kind of a catchphrase for a lot of different things, and the focus starts out in terms of mindfulness is what does the teacher do for themselves? What is the self-care that they bring into their work? And then in turn, they're able to represent that in their classrooms and provide opportunities in the classroom. In terms, 1 year for MCAS, just before MCAS, we had a room in the morning that teacher staffed, and the students could come in, and it was just a nice calming room, and they could come in and lay down on a rug or a yoga mat, just relax. They could just sit and what we call mindful coloring, which is just sort of just having some pencils or crayons and just kind of drawing around and just relaxing their body, getting themselves ready to focus on whatever their day brings. The second part of it is kind of just a weekly, we have certain things we'd like to announce over the announcements each day, like today is Thursday, so it's random acts of kindness. And it's what's happening, who's done something for you, what have you done for somebody else, and share it and shout it out. And that brings not only the humanity-based, the element to it of what we as people need, but some grounding into this is a community. And mindfulness plays right into that.
I think in education, oftentimes we, and rightly so, we focus on the student, and we forget that educators and staff also need that space and that place where they feel comfortable and they're able to better serve students. And you all have done a really fantastic job with that. Can you talk a little bit about some of the changes in terms of the climate and the culture in your school that have come about because of the work that you've been doing?
Well, we often talk about how we moved from being reactionary. One of the things that was really important to us when Mark Hurry and I came on board as the administrators was to reduce our suspensions just to begin with. And we had a very high rate of suspension, and a lot of it was reactionary. A student does something and it's the immediate response. And there was a lot of thinking, not only the laws have supported that in changing that, but also just a lot of thinking of what is it that the students need. And so we talked about how we can be more proactive in getting the sense of what students are experiencing in their day, in the moment, getting to know them. One of our core values is relationships. The other two are impact and innovation. And they all come in together to really try to form a community. We did this year, actually, is the first year that we opened up what we call a wellness room. And you think about, like, we have a book room for books. When kids want to access, different reading levels, you need a space that you can use, that kids can go to and find just a peaceful time. We have yoga that gets done in that room as well. So we've partnered with somebody who has worked with students around difficult situations and social emotional learning, and yoga is a component of that. So there's a lot of things that the climate has brought to the climate a intentionality. And I think that's the piece. It's like, you want to think it's just going to happen, but it has to be intentional. It has to be put in place. Sometimes it has to be scheduled, just so it happens.
That's right.
That's right. That's great. Unless I know you're part of the district's foray into the Leslie Trauma Program.
Correct. So our school we have a team of educators that are working on what it means to be a more trauma-sensitive school, what that looks like, what are the components of it. The course itself is still playing itself out. We're in the second course of 3, and it's a great initiative that the district actually allows us to be a part of. As a counselor, it's something where you see that inherent value in trying to understand not only the biological but environmental impacts that trauma has on our students and their families. And then I think about the residual effect it has on our educators. Being exposed to it is something that touches everybody. But as you were talking about the intentionality of it, it's really important in terms of our social emotional development of our students is connecting with our families. Speaking with our families, understanding and creating a relationship where there's a bridge and they know they can cross it and we're willing to cross it with them. It is something that I know that we in our building, our staff, we're constantly working on how do we improve our family engagement. We have things such as responsive classroom in the morning that helps build time. You talked about that, building the time to get to know our students outside of just the academic piece. Just know them as people. Know what they may go through, know what their challenges may be, as well as the great things that are going on for them. It creates that relationship or the opportunity when there is challenges, we can have a platform of positivity to work from. So it is something that has to be intentional, and that helps it become more impactful throughout the process. So yes, the trauma course is coming along. Responsive classroom has been a great addition to our staff. Second step is university throughout the district, and the relaunch was great for us too. But things are just making the time, making the time to know our kids and our families.
And and we know, we also know that some students need additional supports with social emotional learning than other students. And one of the programs that you have there is the Promise program.
Correct.
And so maybe share with the audience a little bit about that.
Yes. So with the addition of that program, that goes back a couple years as well. It's been nice to have a place where students who are feeling different challenges of stress, anxiety, not necessarily just academic, they can handle that, but life itself is just really difficult and it makes it hard for them to process and to function daily. They get to come into a different program and still be a part of inclusion of the whole school, but get support in a different way that is tailored for them. And you can see how they connect with the different staff and how that allows them to kind of get a more constructive and positive experience on a daily basis. Yes, there's challenges for all students. There's challenges for all staff. There's challenges for all families. But that program in particular is nice because you've seen kids successfully who were previously having difficulties just being in school. Come and find a place that's a little smaller for them in terms of being able to have a counselor they can check in with for themselves, somebody who they can relate to and relate with, and allow them to start to build the connections they need to be successful in school.
It's very
Yeah.
much about relationship building and making those connections, right?
It's huge.
You mentioned responsive classroom. Responsive classroom and Second Step are very specific approaches. Can you talk a little bit about what responsive classroom looks like in your school, some of the practices that happen on a
Absolutely.
regular basis?
Absolutely. It's something where we marked out about 20, 25 minutes in the morning. So after students come in and they check in for the day, so attendance gets taken, they circle up together, class by classroom, excuse me. Sometimes, depending on what's the event, might be by grade level. But definitely by classroom. They do a share. They build a common language amongst each other. They play a game to activate their bodies. It's a nice way to start the day. It's not just straight to work. It's share about how, if it was a Monday, share about how your weekend's been. There might be one specific thing. Students may actually lead the process too. So once they get familiar with it, they're like, it's my turn. And it excites them. But they take ownership of different components of the responsive classroom during the day, of the morning, and then at the back end for in some classes at times as well, they have an end of the day checkout. And you talked about mindfulness, which is something where in our building, different teachers infuse that into the responsive classroom practice. So a lot of good things happening.
It sounds like it.
Yeah,
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 Sure.
very much.
And then at the Capuano, there's lots going on with the social emotional.
Social, the transition to Second Step, one of the benefits was knowing that it was district-wide and the foundation that the children are getting will be carried over into kindergarten, first and second, because we only have them preschool, sometimes to kindergarten.
Right.
But it's giving them a space to understand that this is something that we actually do learn, and finding a common language so they have a place to begin talking about how they fit into that or how they understand a problem or a social conflict or something that's really exciting, and making new friends and being in a room full of people that they didn't know before, because we have the earliest learners, and we take very seriously at the Capuano that the love of learning and the love of education is where it starts, because if we lose them at that, they've got many years ahead of them where it can be a struggle. So the message that they are always valued as a person and what they want to share and what they need to talk about is important, and that gets carried through in the other initiatives like Responsive Classroom or Second Step. And even though our classrooms don't all do Responsive Classroom in the same capacity, the morning meeting is a part of all the rooms and all the classes, and even just introducing for the student that we come together as a community and we start our day as what school looks like, and this is a part of it. And yes, we want to hear what's important to you, because we want you to bring that into school. And know that there's a place for that. And we have, all of our rooms have calm down areas or calm down corners, and that's part of the self-management for the students. But I have seen teachers model it, and as oh, I'm feeling really overwhelmed, I'm gonna go to the calm down corner. And it speaks a little bit of that self-care. They might do it intentionally as a modeling, but they get something from it. And to know that you can, to show that to your students, that even the grown-ups have moments where they need to take a breath and to take a pause and to maybe say, you know what, I need a break, I'm going to come back to that. It's a skill that students don't always realize coming in is something they can ask for. They're go, 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 and our kids are young, they're naturally on the go, but the idea of that being in school, there is space to say, whoa, I need something else right now, and to know that getting that need met helps the bigger picture and helps them attend to all the other important work that they're doing.
I think I'm going to create a calm down corner in my office.
Have someone in there all the time.
One of the things that the Capuano piloted for us initially, which is now extended to the other schools, are sensory rooms. Right. And so maybe talk about how you might use a sensory room for a particular student.
So there's a lot of different tools in the sensory room. Our kids are young, so from stuffed animals to sometimes there's little mini trampolines or mats, and we worked with our OT and PT staff as well to understand what is useful in certain situations, because sometimes something is calming for one student can rev another student up. So we usually identify students who may benefit from that from teacher input, or sort of saying that, knowing that that's a resource, and saying let's take a break, let's take a walk. And sometimes that's scheduled because we know students, their capacity is, we're trying to grow that so they can attend the day, we need to teach them this is a time you could use a break from this because they don't have that skill yet. And other times it's just a space, everyone has a tough day. Everyone has, they're dealing with various thoughts and feelings, and to know that there's a place where you can have these feelings and not necessarily have an audience. Like you've got your teacher there or another trusted adult, but sometimes the calm down corner is too public for kids because it's in the classroom and they have a hard time expressing those feelings and then recovering from them. And that's a big piece for me as a counselor, that it's one thing to understand the feeling, but to know that you can go back to what you need to do and it's okay. And by normalizing that tool for everybody, it sends that message that it's not a punishment. It's not you're doing anything wrong or there's something wrong with you. It's, I need something in this moment, and we've got little bodies with big feelings. And my hope is when they go off to the other schools is even if they get bigger, they can carry that with them, that it's okay, that I need to recognize that I need to deal with what I'm feeling first, whether it's nervous about a test or there's a substitute teacher or I had a busy weekend, out of school, and I need to come back to that place. So
That's right.
I think a good point that you brought up is you said it's a skill they haven't learned yet, and I think it's a really good way to look at when you're dealing with students and the social emotional pieces that come up, and you think of it as a skill set that they haven't learned. It helps the staff person who's ever working with them too to reframe how they might address it or reframe how they think about it for that student, because it's less of a kind of adversarial or you versus me. It's like, I need to help that student access that skill that they need to build, and then, like you said, hopefully it carries over.
And it's important when the adults have that message and have the ability to think about self-care and stuff, because if a student comes and they don't know their math facts, we say, oh, okay, let me help you learn the math facts. But social emotional on some level is going to impact our social emotional feelings because of that emotional component, because we are caring, empathetic adults, and we're going to react to this. So even recognizing, whoa, this student, whether it's trauma related or whether it's just a student that's having a really hard time, to sort of say, this is a skill. And we say all behavior is communication, and so by teaching social emotional skills, we're helping to translate what that behavior is for students.
I think that awareness is what the self-awareness of not just the child but the adults around the child is critical, because the behaviors and language you're trying to help a student acquire or to adjust is the crux of the job and the task. You're trying to help them get proactive or positive behaviors, positive languages that actually allow them to become agents in their own way to achieve what they want to.
Right.
So the agency to actually achieve. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, so, very much what you're all saying is when you have a parent-teacher conference or you have a meeting with parents and families, I think we're all used to having conversations with them about the academics and how they can support academics. How do you talk with families and parents to engage them around social emotional learning? Because this may not even be on their radar.
I think one of the things you start out with is just emphasizing that relationship piece. One of the things we're doing in professional development this year is student-teacher relationship, but we've expanded it to family relationship. And I think just that piece of like, we know your child, or we want to know your child, depending upon where it is in the year for like conferences, but also just emphasizing how those two things connect. How, yes, we want to talk about the academic progress, but here's what might support them in their learning. They might struggle with, whatever that might be, whatever their struggle might be, and how can we have a conversation about it so it's not a negative conversation. It's more of let's collaborate. Let's figure out what resources are available.
You answered actually one of the questions that I had, and that's whether you have you've created any kind of a space for teachers to be able to talk through what they're learning through the social emotional learning efforts that they're presenting to their students.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that the biggest thing, and like I said in the beginning, is it's that learning piece. And when adults are taking that effort and time to learn certain things, they're able to then bring that back. So it just makes teachers feel more equipped too.
Great, thank you.
I would add to just in terms of that family component is just the championing It goes bilaterally in that way. We champion for the kids, and when we have parents that understand and they know, the kids are the biggest. They talk the most about you and what you are and what you represent as a staff member to them. So when you meet with parents, having that pre-meeting that's already occurred,
That's
when
true.
they come into you saying, "Oh, well, that's who you are. Okay, I've heard about you."
That's a very good point. Yep.
But it builds a genuine relationship that you can then build to work on the academics, because the relational piece is already inherently not altruistic, but it's inherently in the right place, I should say.
Right.
Yeah.
That's great.
It's funny you said that, because one of the students always came home and told their parent that I was Buzz Lightyear, because because they could hear me they didn't know who was doing the announcements. When the parent met me, they go, "Oh, you're Buzz Lightyear."
You know you have a new nickname in the district now, right?
Oh, great. Yeah.
And so when you think, just quickly, but what's one skill that at the end of the year you really hope you have worked with students on from social emotional learning perspective that you kind of think is one of the more foundational ones? What's that one skill? Just kind of quick round.
I would say for me, it's continuous self-awareness. Continuous self-awareness.
And I think given the age of our kids, self-management is part of that as well. How to understand how you're feeling and control a little bit, or ask for help if you need it. So.
I think self-love and confidence, too.
Quickly, one quick challenge to the work.
Every student is unique, and since they all need something different, finding programs or classroom-wide opportunities that really have the impact for everyone is the ongoing challenge. But it also is what I think makes it fun. You know, every day is something
That's right.
different, right?
The challenge and opportunity are the external factors that come into play. That's, for me, I would say that's the one thing you can't control.
I would say balancing all the things that need to come into play.
It's great. I mean, it's so wonderful to hear, as you started out, to say every student is unique, because that is our goal in Somerville Public Schools. Every student is unique. And our goal is always to bring the best opportunities to every student in the way that they most need them.
Right.
So I think with our social emotional learning, this is an example of a menu that continues to build out, and it's through your hard work and expertise and others that will eventually get there, so that every student has those opportunities to best themselves. It's unbelievable, but it's time. We have a few announcements.
Yes, just a quick reminder to please stay connected. Follow us on social media and visit our website to learn what's happening in our schools and in our district. I also want to just again remind you that the SFLC clothing closet at the Cummings building is open Thursdays from 12 to 3. It provides free, gently used or new items for shoes, toys, and other items to families in need. Wonderful resource. Please take advantage of it. And believe it or not, Thanksgiving recess is coming up. The Thanksgiving break begins at noon on Wednesday, November 27th, and all schools and district offices will be closed November 28th and 29th.
And with that, happy Thanksgiving to all of our families out there. We hope you have a wonderful, safe, and peaceful one. And thank you to our guests today. You were enlightening in so many different ways, and to our crew, and also to happy Thanksgiving to our crew. Thank you.